I've got love like.
Let me hear you sing it, come on.
I've got love like an
Ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean.
I've got love
Like an, give it to me.
I've got love like
An ocean in my soul. I've got peace. Oh, I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river
in my
soul. I've got
peace like a river.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. You can be seated.
Church, it's good to be with you this morning, church. I said it's good to be with you this morning, church. You know I can't see. I gotta hear you. Amen. It's a multitude out there. Oh, yes. Church, this is a wonderful time for us to talk about a subject that some of us don't want to talk about. The theme for this month in this church is death. And we know death is real. It has touched all of us in some way at some time in our lives. But it's not always a subject that you talk about in a way that will keep people engrossed, frankly, because people will not stay with you when you're talking about death. They're going somewhere else. They're thinking about mama, daddy, granddaddy, grandmama. They're thinking about a friend. They're thinking about something they read in the paper. So when you talk about death to folks, you got to be prepared for silence to ensue. Now, church, you know I've already said silence is not good with me. So I'm just going to give you some particularities of life that will help us in death. Amen?
Amen.
Let us begin with the fact that death is in fact part of life. There is nothing out here that stays forever. We know that. And it's not supposed to stay forever. We are in the process right now, frankly, of breaking down. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like my passage is hastening. My breaking down period is occurring a little bit faster than I want. But you know, I understand that's the way it is. It's supposed to be this way, that I can't remember everything I used to. And it hurts me because, you know, when that cue, you know, when you're seeing, that's a cue. You know, you say, oh, yeah, I know that person. And then you go back, yeah, and you get that name. But when you don't see the person, they come right up on you and say, hey, Gerald, remember me? You go, okay, help me now. And then after, you know, that's a good thing because then they're going to say their names. You know, they're going to feel sorry for the blind man, you know. So I understand, though, but breaking down is part of the passage of life. And that's what we go through. We're in a passage right now, church. We're in a passage. We're not like our little ones. You know, we just heard those beautiful voices. Oh, you know, it made my heart sing because I remember when I was a little boy in children's choir singing, you know. And you sung because you believed in what you were saying, Pastor David. No one told you any differently. So you really believe that, yes, it is true. And when we sing like that, as a youngster, you know, you just take heart. You say, oh, it's so beautiful, the innocence, because you know what's going to come next. As we get older, our innocence is thrown away because we are exposed to the rigors of life. And that is a passage. That is the way it's supposed to be. We're not all supposed to be little children in big bodies. That's not the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to deal with the rigors of life because that is part of the passage. When I was somewhere in my life, I don't know exactly where I was, frankly. I really don't. But I remember I was on a train and I went from one car to the next car. Now, usually in a train, you know, you're in one car and that's the car you stay in. But for some reason, I went through one door, went through this passage, and then I was in another car. And I was scared, church. Now, like I say, I don't remember when, who, what, where. That's not in my memory. But I do remember the feeling. When you walk from somewhat steady, when you're on the train anyway, you're kind of moving, but it's kind of solid underneath you, you know, carpet, it used to be carpet, you know. And then that door opened and you heard the sound, you know, and I said, whoa, you hear the sound. And then you step on a metal floor, it's metal, and you feeling all the vibrations. And then you open the door quickly so you can get back in it. Well, passage. Sometimes it's a surprise when we get to use our adult voices when we haven't really had to use them. You know, sometimes it's scary when we're the ones that are giving out the instructions. Sometimes it's scary when we hear the sound of folks who are saying yes to what we're saying. That's a passage. And I believe as we go through these passages on our way, it's not going to stop when we die, church. I just don't believe that. I believe that we're going to go through another kind of passage. I don't know what it's like. I've never been there. But I kind of feel that what we're doing here right now prepares us for that next car that we're going to enter, you know? I kind of got that. And if you want to call me a little child singing songs that sound good, but it's hard to believe, I'm sorry, call me that. Because I'm sticking with that, Pastor David. That I'm going to go through that car that's rough right now, but when I get to that other car, it's going to be another world to move through. So that's kind of what death is. Death is nothing but, and you can fill in the blanks. Death is nothing but. Put the but in there though, because we need to not make death so huge and so hard to fathom and so scary. We need to be able to move past and say, it's just a but. You see, church, I feel like this. I read somewhere that though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Yeah. Now, church, that's a reassuring thing for me. That's reassuring. I'm not alone. So that valley that we walk through, and sometimes we walking through valleys. Now, we like to think we up on that mountaintop. We like to think, oh yeah, kick back, pop another one, you know? But no, there's some valleys that we're walking through, church, and you better understand you're walking through valleys so that you prepare yourself. But you don't have to put fear on. That's not the point. You know you're in a valley, but you don't have to put on that cloak of fear. No, because thou art with me, right? And that is the reassurance, blessed assurance. Come on. So, you know, that's where I want to begin then, because the African cosmology that sometimes makes people say, oh, that's another kind of world, that's another kind of, no, it's not. It's the way the African views the world, the cosmology. In the African view of the world, the African says, I stand in a moving stream. I stand in that moving stream looking toward the future. And in back of me is the past. And everything coming downstream is going to go through me and around me. That's the past. And so what is dead no longer is dead because it's coming through me. Those ancestors are coming through me. As I walk into the future, I'm walking with the ancestors coming with me, right? And that's another way of looking through passage. We are not alone. Thou art with me. So that cosmology stays with me because I believe that's kind of what it was. We lost an ancestor. Well, he became an ancestor. We lost a great friend this past week, John Burton Wolfe. John Burton Wolfe, who stood in this pulpit many a day, spoke many courageous things as he invoked us to move down that stream knowing that we're not alone. Now, John Wolfe, it is said, Marlon told us, back in the 60s, in 1965, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Selma issued the call to ministers all over the country to come to Selma because we need your help getting across this Edmund Pettus Bridge. And so ministers from all over the country, a lot of Unitarians, church, a lot of Unitarians, came down to Selma to be with Dr. King. John Wolfe and his buddies here in Tulsa said, we got Selma right here in Tulsa. We don't need to go to Selma. We need to have something here. Now Marlon tells this story, and he also puts another part to this story that I think is significant in us understanding about courage. Courage that is with us all the time. Marlon says during that same period of time, there was a study being done at the University of Tulsa that involved ministers coming and sharing who they were outside of the pulpit and the pomp of being up front. What was actually going on with them? And this study was over many, many months. These ministers, including Dr. Wolfe and the others that said, let's go downtown and do this march, those ministers, including Dr. Wolfe, made connections. They made the kind of connections that said, yes, we can, in face of no, you can't. Those kind of connections, when you are able to be vulnerable, church, that's the key. When you're able to show who you are, when you're able to reveal the pain that is in you, when you're able to share your love with another, that's a connection that helps you as you go through the passage and gives you the courage to do that. So when Dr. Wolfe and the other young men at that point said, let's do Selma right here in Tulsa, and let's bring our black brothers and sisters into this sanctuary, the first time an interfaith service like that had ever happened in Tulsa. Think about that, 1965. The first time right here in this church. And when that happened, people said that took a lot of courage. But those who knew said it took a lot of vulnerability. That vulnerability that says, I'm not all that. I'm with someone. I'm part of something. I believe in power greater than my muscle power. What gives me the strength to do the things I do? And that vulnerability to speak that truth allowed those men and women to do what they did. Now that is what I want us to think about as we move into right now. As we move into right now, when we're understanding that we are walking with the ancestors, walking into the future, facing death as nothing but a passage, and knowing that the work that you do right now is what is preparing you for the next compartment. All right, I want you to consider vulnerability then. Vulnerability, not in the sense of, when you do confession, when you say confession, like Jay-Z did in this album. Y'all know about that album? Y'all know about that album. I mean, just tell it all, I did it, all that confession. And that's vulnerability, no doubt. That is vulnerability. That is opening up, and I am not belittling confession. Some of us need confession, right? Because we keep living that lie, hoping that no folks will understand or see, but that's not true. People looking at you, they know. Go on and say it. Do it, confess it. Now, I'm not talking about confession, though. The vulnerability I'm talking about is the ability to deal with truth, church. The truth that hurts. The truth that makes you ashamed. The truth that is hidden because nobody wants to touch it because it's so awful. And because they don't touch it, they invent things. They invent things to help them understand the world without dealing with that awful truth down there that they're trying to hide. Church, are you with me? Yes. All right, thank you. And I'm speaking about, let me talk about a little bit of truth right now. You see, right now we're in a lot of truth-telling. We call this a time of reconciliation. And you can't have reconciliation unless you tell the truth. And many, many books are being written now that are telling us what was the real truth of the history of this country, right? And I lead this group called All Souls Reads, and we will be reading a book next Sunday, as a matter of fact, at 1:30, or if you can't come at 1:30, you can come Wednesday at 7. And that book is called Killers of the Flower Moon by David Graham. And it takes place, it's a real story. It's not a fiction, this is nonfiction. It takes place in Osage County. And real short, let me tell you real short of it, because I want you to come and we can discuss it. But from 1921 to 1926, there were murders in Osage County involving Osage people mysteriously coming up dead, young people who were killed either by a gunshot or by poisoning or even blown up by dynamite. Now, officially it was 27 people, but the fact of the matter is that hundreds of Osage people were killed from 1918 to 1931. Hundreds of Osage people were killed. Why were these Osage people killed? Because the Osage Nation did not have a reservation like we think of a reservation on the top of the soil. They had reservation underneath the soil. And underneath that soil was oil. Amen. Oil, bunches of oil, millions of oil. In 1923, they said $30 million was given to the Osage people. $30 million in 1933 was about $400 million in today's dollars. Folks were wealthy. Mansions, cars, all the things, accoutrements of wealth the Osage people had. But guess what? The United States government said, you are not a full-fledged citizen, human being, you need a guardian. And that guardian had to be white. Amen. A white person was the guardian of these grown folk, and those white people who were guardians had a plot that developed into killing people so that they would get the money. Lord have mercy. But I won't tell you the rest of the story, but I'll tell you this part. The part is why? Why would folks do that? Why would people come on with it? Why would people be so greedy that they would kill for that money? Why? What was in there? Money and power. I like it. Talk to me. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, here's the other part though. Last month's book that we read was called Stamped from the Beginning, Ibram X. Kendi. And Brother Kendi said, y'all, we've been looking at this thing wrong. Racist ideas is what is the killer right here. Not, ooh, these bad old people. It's the ideas. And he said, but the racist ideas don't come from ignorance and hatred. It's the other way around. Racist ideas come before ignorance and hatred. Come on with me now. He said everything comes down to political, economic, or cultural self-interest. He said that's what starts everything. Political, economic, cultural self-interest. And that makes people say, I want that you got. And through either politically, economic, or cultural, I'm going to discriminate. I'm going to take it. In the Osage case, discrimination meant death. I'm going to take your life in order for me to fulfill my self-interest. And then the racist ideas come to justify the taking of the life. Well, you know, they're sorry people. They're not able to take care of themselves. They're this, they're that. They're lazy. They're poor in their thinking. They're whatever it is. It's a racist idea. And that racist idea then leads other folks who don't think very well to say, yeah, they're ignorant. They're this, that, and they're the ones that are ignorant. All right, so the racial history of this country has not been told, but is being told now. Books are coming out. People are telling the truth. Did you know the third stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner, written by Francis Scott Key, is a really racist stanza? Talking about black folks, slaves will never be free. Now, we talk about the Star-Spangled Banner, and this man is just excoriating people of color. Oh, but that's a symbol of our democracy, the Star-Spangled Banner. How am I supposed to love the Star-Spangled Banner when I know Francis Scott Key was a racist? Francis Scott Key didn't love me. Francis Scott Key, the history book tells us, had a unit that fought against runaway enslaved Africans who fought for the British in 1812. I'm giving y'all knowledge. All right, you can look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. In the War of 1812, Britain said, all you enslaved people, you come fight for us and we'll give you your freedom. Now, some of it was true, most of it was not. But they did, they fought. They ran away and they fought. And this colonial Marines, these folks, engaged in a battle with the unit that Francis Scott Key was part of and whipped their natural behinds. These runaway slaves kicked Francis Scott Key and his cohorts all the way back to where they were coming from. So now Francis Scott Key has to write the Star-Spangled Banner and throws that last verse in there out of meanness because he got his behind whipped. Now that's the truth, church. I ain't telling the story, but you don't read that. You don't hear that. Because the racial history in this country has not been told the way it really was. Now it's changing. So what do we do with this, church? You got to be vulnerable here. White folks, black folks, it's time to be vulnerable when you get the truth. It's time to say, I didn't know that. If you black, if you white, I didn't know that. Now, nobody's going to pick up a brand and beat you down, white folks. Nobody's going to do that. But we will be educated. We will not say, oh, that symbol of democracy is being tarnished because people are taking a knee, which means they're at half mast. When the flag is at half mast, that means that we're mourning. Take a knee, because you're mourning, because this country ain't what it should be. So that's what the knee is all about. It ain't about, I don't like that. You know, it's not about any of that stuff that our 45 wants to get us to believe. No, it's about telling the truth. And I'm being vulnerable here. Colin Kaepernick took the knee, and that was all about vulnerability. At first, he was the only one. That was really vulnerable. But you know, church, he had some predecessors. He had some ancestors who walking with him as he took that knee. And they took the knee with him and said, Cap, you're not alone. I'm right here with you, partner. Because that's the whole story of resistance in this country. We've always had to be vulnerable and do something outside the norm. Sit down at the lunch counter when you know you wouldn't be served, right? You had to do those things because you had to draw attention to the fact, I am somebody. What did the marchers in Memphis, when Dr. King went to Memphis to help out, they had on the placards that said, I am a man. As if they had to show that out loud to tell people, treat me like a human being. So when Kaepernick said, I'm doing a half mass right here, he wasn't by himself, because thou art with me. So church, this is the thing that is now we're into telling the truth and staying woke. That means that some folks are going to come back hard, church. But we read this book stamped from the beginning that says it's always been that way. Anytime there's been progress, it's been folks over here saying no. And that's the people who, out of self-interest, say no. I don't want you to get ahead, because then you would know the truth. And if you knew the truth, I would be in trouble. That's their paranoia. That's not how it works. We say if we know the truth, then we're free. And if you're free, you're able to make decisions for the betterment of all. If you see yourself as part of a community, that's where you're going to be part of the problem solved, through the community. So church, I'm here this morning saying vulnerability is huge. We got to do some things to expose who we are, that we are freedom-loving, truth-telling, justice-seeking people. But what a fellowship that is. When you're part of something that has that kind of love, when you can tell people the truth and know that they love you right back with it. So we ain't reliving the past. We're saying now we know what really happened so that we can be even closer, because they don't want us to be close. Do you know, church, that this is revolutionary for us to be like this? When we say everyone, when we say todos, don't you know that there's some folks saying, oh my God, do you know what's going to happen next? They're going to start loving one another. Oh, they start loving one another. That's the end of us. And you hear that stuff about our heritage needs to be preserved. Well, what heritage is that? That's the heritage that excludes. That heritage needs to go. And that's why you, church, that's why you are so dangerous. But what a fellowship. What a fellowship to be part of a group that is dangerous, and they know it, and they still walking, because they walking with the ancestors, because thou art with me. They walking on in this place that says there's a better way ahead. What a fellowship. What a fellowship. What a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Well, I'm leaning, safe and secure from all along. Well, I'm leaning, yes, I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. Thank you, sir. Leaning,
Safe and secure from all along. Leaning on the everlasting arms.
Hey, we're so happy you're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with all souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256 or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed.
and be a blessing.